Hello, my name is Rocio and I'm an immigration attorney with SFR Law Corporation. SFR Law Corporation has created this video to help you understand who is a migrant according to the United States regulations and therefore who can migrate to America. It is important to choose the correct category when trying to migrate to America because we're talking about millions of people who want to migrate to the U.S. To give you an idea, the U.S. is a country that is home to more than 325 million people, and according to a 2017 survey, there are more than 44 million migrants in the U.S. That is around 13% of the overall population on the United States is formed by migrants. Before we continue, I just want to let you know that if you have any questions about what we are talking today, you can leave all your questions in the comment section of the video. Just be careful to not leave any sensitive information because those comments are read by everybody. But if you have a general question, feel free to put it there and we're gonna answer it. If you have a more specific question about your case or about something that you wanna know personally, we encourage you to contact us in our website that is sfrlc.com, and you're gonna find the link in the description of the video. So there in our contact page, you can make a more personal question. You can also follow us on Facebook or on LinkedIn, so you can be on top of any news that may affect your immigration status, or you can also see the coming videos where we are gonna talk deeper about the visas that we're gonna talk today, because today is an overview just to know the categories and who can migrate to the United States. That said, we're going to start by defining or by understanding how the United States law understands migrants. So the United States law distinguishes between non-immigrant intent migrants, immigrant intent migrants, and has a section for refugees. So people with non-immigrant intent includes that people who has a residency in a foreign country, that is, they live outside America and they intend to return to their home country or to any country where they live, and who are in the United States only temporarily for business, for pleasure, to study, or just while transiting to a different country. Now, people with immigrant intent are those who want to reside permanently in the United States. And finally, the people who come to the U.S. as an asylum seeker will have to fit within the definition of a refugee. That means asylum seekers must demonstrate to the U.S. government that they are refugees. Now that you know how the United States classifies migrants, we're going to talk about what is required to come or who can come under those categories and who fits in which category. We're going to start with the non-immigrant category. I'm only going to mention a few of the people that comes in this category, but if you want to come to the US under this category and you don't hear any situation that is similar to yours, again, you can ask us a question and leave it in the comments. We're gonna divide them in people that comes for business, people that comes for pleasure, and people that comes to study. People that comes for business related activities, they can come for work, they can come as agricultural workers, they can be managers, they can be artists, they can be fashion models. All these people can come and engage in business temporarily in the US. When we are talking about people that comes for pleasure, that can be somebody that is engaged to a US citizen and wants to come to celebrate their engagement in America, somebody that comes as a tourist, or somebody that wants to engage in certain medical procedures. So also you can come because you found that America has the best doctor for your type of treatment, and you can get a visa to come only temporarily to seek that treatment. And now People that comes to the US to study, I have heard that people believe that only if you're going to engage in a master's degree or a PhD, that's the only way that you can come to the US to study. That is not true. People does not come to the US to study only an advanced degree. You can come to study university, you can come to study a PhD, a master's degree, but you can also go to a conservatory, you can go to a high school, to an elementary school. You can even just come for a cultural exchange, but that is gonna fall within a visa, a non-immigrant visa, under the category of people that comes to study. So the common requirement for all these non-immigrant visas is that the person intends to return to their home country. That is, they just want to be in the US temporarily. They are not planning to stay in the United States. And once you have obtained your non-immigrant visa, you're going to be able to stay in the United States for the time necessary to engage in the activities for which your visa was granted. So you can see how also here the time is going to vary a lot. The time of your visa will depend on the purpose of your travel. It's going to be different, for example, for somebody that is coming for work, but the work that they are going to perform in the US is 2 or 3 weeks. It's a short project that somebody that was accepted in university, and then that person has a whole program. That person is going to stay for years. So both of these visas are non-immigrant visas. So people is just going to stay in the United States for a certain amount of time, but the visa is gonna allow them to stay in the United States for different periods of time. One probably is gonna be 2-3 weeks, and the other one is going to be years. So it is very important for you to know that the visa is gonna give you sufficient time to perform the activities for which you came to the United States. But what is common in both of these is that even the person that is staying here years because went to university has to go back to his or her country of origin when the visa expires. That is going to be when that person finishes university. We understand that plans change, that once you are in the United States, probably you're gonna want to stay a bit longer, or you are going to try to engage in an activity that is not permitted under your current visa. That happens a lot. Life happens. So it is not mandatory to stay in the visa in which you enter the United States, but it is very important that if you're going to ask for an extension, which means that you want to stay longer, or a change of visa, that is, you're going to engage in activities that were not allowed under your previous visa, you need to do this before your current visa expires. So for example, you were in college and everybody was applying for university, and you just did it because everybody was doing it, and you got admitted into the university that you wanted to go. So, but your current visa only allows you to be in America for 3 years just to finish college, and university is going to take another 3 years. So in this case, you're going to ask for an extension of a visa, and it is possible, but you should do it before your current visa expires so you don't fall out of the status. And I'm going to explain why that is important in a second. And for example, somebody that came under a business visa because that person came to a conference, and in that conference that person met somebody else that now wants to hire him or hire her. In that case, the person that came just for the conference was not allowed to work, and also was going to be in the US for just a short period of time. In this case, the person can make a change of visa. It's not going to be the same type of visa. It's going to change to a work visa. But that person then can stay in the United States for a longer period of time, and also engage in different activities that were not allowed in his previous visa. But again, if you want to make a change of visa, or you want to extend your visa, you should do so before your current visa expires, to avoid any legal consequences. what can happen is that if you stay or if you engage in activities that were not allowed under your current visa, you're gonna fall out of status. And what that means is that you are going to be deportable, that the government can deport you, and of course that comes with a lot of legal consequences. You could be barred from coming to the US for 3, 5, or 10 years. Now we're gonna talk about immigrant visas. An immigrant visa gives a person the privilege to live permanently in the United States, and therefore is going to cover a smaller group of people and is going to have more requirements. Generally, to obtain an immigrant visa, you're going to need a sponsor. This is not always the case. There are two options where the person can self-sponsor. That is, it doesn't need anybody else to sponsor him or her, but generally you're going to need somebody to sponsor you to come to the US. So, an immigrant visa can be based either in family or employment. We're going to talk first about family-based immigrant visas. To obtain a family-based immigrant visa, as the name says, you are going to need a family member who already lives in America. This can be a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident. So if you're trying to base your immigrant visa because you have a family member who is a U.S. citizen, it's the U.S. citizen who is going to ask the government to allow the person that is outside the United States to come and live here permanently. So it is the United States citizen who has to file the petition. And the people that a United States citizen can help to come to America and live with him or her are the United States citizen's spouse, sons or daughters, parents, brothers and sisters, and technically it's not the United States citizen who is going to sponsor the following people, but a widow or a widower of a United States citizen can apply for a green card to come and live permanently in the United States because of that previous relationship with the United States citizen. Now, if your family member is a lawful permanent resident or green card holder, as well as the legal permanent resident who is going to file the petition, and a green card holder can file a petition for a spouse or for unmarried sons and daughters. To begin the immigration process, the United States citizen or the green card holder are going to file a petition called I-130. This petition is to ask the government to allow the family member to come to reside in the United States. The requirements and the evidence that has to be sent with this petition are going to vary depending who the family member is, the age of the family member, if the person who wants to migrate is married or not, or if they have children or not. So it's going to be fact-driven and it's going to depend who the family member is. And if you want to know more about this, you can go to our website and we have more detailed explanation of family-based immigration to the United States. Now we're going to talk about employment-based immigrant visas. To obtain an immigrant visa based on employment, you have two options. You can ask an employer to sponsor you, or you can sponsor yourself. Woo! That sounds amazing, but it is very complicated and it comes with a lot of requirements if you want to sponsor yourself, and we're going to talk about them soon. There are many people who can come to the United States under an immigrant visa based on employment. So I'm gonna just talk about a few that are the most common ones, and then I'll talk about the people that category covers and what the requirements are. So you're going to see how the requirements are going to start to increase gradually depending the type of work that the person is going to engage into once in the United States. The first group that we're going to talk about is the group that doesn't need a sponsor. A person under this category doesn't need any previous connection to come to the United States and obtain a permanent residency, and they are going to be their own sponsors. I'm going to mention the two groups of people and then I'm going to explain each of them. So the first group of people are persons with extraordinary ability, and then we have immigrant entrepreneurs and investors. That sounds like three groups, but no. One is people with extraordinary ability, and the other one is immigrant entrepreneurs and or investors. Persons with extraordinary ability. This category is for people whose work has national or international acclaim in the fields of science, education, business, or athletics. So it is only in these four fields, and it has to be national or international acclaim, and that has to be documented. Now, immigrant entrepreneurs and or investors, this type of visa is reserved for people whose new enterprise or whose investment is going to directly benefit the United States economy. That is, you really need to show how your new enterprise or the investment that you're making in the United States is going to directly benefit the economy of the country. If you're going to create a new business in America, that new enterprise has to create jobs for people in the United States. And if you are going to invest in the United States, you're not allowed to borrow money. It has to be money out of your pocket, because if you borrow money, that is not going to grant you a green card or the permanent residency. So again, you can go to our website and you can learn more about this, or you can wait for the coming videos. But if you really want to know now, you can go to our website and we have all these categories explained already. Something that is very important for a person that is going to sponsor him or herself is to make certain to show that you have the economic means to support yourself in the United States. A person in the next group cannot sponsor him or herself. They're going to need somebody in the United States, an employer who is going to be the sponsor. And also, the person must have a job offer. So again, I'm going to mention the people and then I'm going to explain. People that fit in this group are outstanding professors and researchers and intra-company transferees. An outstanding professor or researcher is a person that has a minimum of 3 years experience in teaching or research and must be recognized internationally. So I know it sounds counterintuitive. The person that can self-sponsor needed only national or international acclaim, one or the other, and you that need a job offer and a sponsor need to be recognized internationally. The difference is that for law purposes, national acclaim or international acclaim, to be acclaimed is way different to only be recognized. So that's why here you're going to need international recognition of your work, and you have to be teaching or you have to be doing research minimum for 3 years. And now we're going to talk about the final group. People in this group must have a job offer, a sponsor, and the sponsor must obtain a labor certification approved. The labor certification must be approved by the Department of Labor, and the certification must say that there was nobody in the United States who could do the job that the person is going to perform, or nobody was available and willing to do this work. So we're going to talk about the people that is in this group, and you're going to see why the Department of Labor certification is very important and very complicated to obtain. This group covers professionals with a master's degree or a PhD, but also covers people with a bachelor's degree who has 5 years of progressive experience. and also skilled persons with a minimum of 2 years experience or training. So you can see how many people could fit within this category. Skilled people does not necessarily need a degree. Many people has a bachelor's degree, and there are many masters and PhDs in America. So the Department of Labor has to certify that there was nobody in America available to do this particular job for which you are trying to hire a foreign person. So that's why this group is a bit more tight and has more requirements. And you can see how we went for a person that didn't need to have a sponsor, to somebody that needed a job offer and the sponsor, and somebody that needs to have a sponsor, a job offer, and the sponsor must have a labor certification. So the requirements start to pile up depending the job that you are going to perform once in America. There is one last thing that I want to mention about immigrant visas based on employment. The time varies because visas are issued in the chronological order in which the petitions were filed with the government, and they have a numerical limit. And when the numerical limit is reached, the government will not accept any more petitions. But it is tricky. It's not like it's January 1st and I'm gonna be with my package and all my proofs and everything to send them right away to U.S.CIS. No, it's not like that. U.S.CIS determines the dates for filing applications. That is, U.S.CIS is going to indicate when we can start to file immigrant visas based on employment. So we need to wait for U.S.CIS green light to start to send those petitions. And that's all that we have for immigrant visas based on employment and in all immigrant visas. So now we're gonna talk about refugees. That is, people coming to the United States seeking asylum. The United States is going to grant asylum only to people who fit the definition of refugee. So all asylum seekers must demonstrate to the U.S. government that they are refugees. The Immigration and Nationality Act of the United States defines a refugee as any person who is outside any country of such person's nationality, or in the case of a person having no nationality, is outside any country in which such persons last habitually resided, and who is unable or unwilling to return to, and is unable or unwilling to avail himself or herself of the protection of that country because of persecution or a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. That is a very complicated definition, and it is as complicated to obtain asylum in the United States of America. To simplify the definition and understand who is covered by the definition of refugee, I'll give you the 3 basic requirements that a person must fulfill to be considered a refugee. First, the person must have suffered harm or will likely suffer harm in his or her home country because of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Second, the government of the person's home country is the persecutor. That is, it is the government who committed the harm against the person, or the government can't or doesn't want to protect the person from the harm. And finally, there is no place in the person's country of origin where that person can relocate him or herself safely. So even after the person moved to a different place within the country or thought about it, that person knew that there was not going to be any place where he or she could live safely. Additionally, to fulfill these three basic requirements, there are some common restrictions. For example, the person seeking asylum could live safely in another country that is not his or her own. Also, the American government is not going to investigate the claim. It is the asylum seeker, is the person who suffered the harm, that has to show that he or she fits within the definition of refugee. Sometimes the testimony of a person can be enough, but that will be decided by the officer deciding on the asylum claim or the immigration judge. Also, if a person was convicted of a serious crime in another country, that person can be considered as a danger to the community of the United States and therefore denied asylum. As I said, there are many more restrictions, but these are the most common ones, and that's why I wanted to mention them. And besides restrictions on the law, there are also a lot of misconceptions about asylum, and I'm just going to mention a few and the most common ones. So the first misconception is that the United States government is required to grant asylum to all people who need help and arrives to the United States. Asylum is a very specific form of relief, and just because something very bad happened to a person or because that person suffered violence in his or her home country, that's not going to be enough to grant asylum. Instead, asylum is granted only to a person that fits within the definition of refugee, and if the only thing that happened was harm, that's only one of the three requirements for to be a refugee, to be considered a refugee. Another wrong idea is that once in the United States, a person can freely work. To work in the United States, a person needs a work permit, and if you work without a work permit, you are going to be deported. And for a person seeking asylum, a work permit is not going to be given until after 180 days have passed after that person applied for asylum. So it's not 180 days after the person arrived to the country, but 180 days after that person requested asylum. So that's about 6 months that a person cannot work even though they are in the United States because they don't have a work permit. Also, I have heard that it's good to have permission to live in another country because that means that I am a good person. The law is very specific in this. If the asylum seeker can be removed, that is, if the asylum seeker can be sent to another country where that person can live safely, the asylum seeker is more likely to be sent to that country than to be granted asylum. So just to recap and to make sure you understand asylum, asylum is given to a person who needs it, not to a person who wants it. And that's the big difference. All the information regarding asylum can be found in the Immigration and Nationality Act. It is spread through the whole body of law, but if you want to start to read, a good place to start is the sections 157 and 158. These are the three ways in which the United States classifies migrants and the basic requirements for a person to migrate depending the purpose for which that person wants to come to the United States. I hope you find this information useful. If you want more information or you would like us to review your case, you can contact us in our website, that's sfrlc.com. There is a link on the video's description. You can also follow us on Facebook or on LinkedIn to know about any immigration news that may affect your immigration status or to see the upcoming videos. Thank you for being with us today. SFR Law Corporation, helping you to achieve a secure and thriving future in the United States of America.